Yeah. So, anyhow, so just to summarize again once more this slide, if the two genes are test cross, results of a test cross considering two genes present on a chromosome, two gene pair present on a chromosome, and if we get four categories of gametes in the ratio 1:1:1:1, we have to assume that the two genes present on the chromosomes are independently assorted. If we get a test cross ratio of such a cross where we are getting only the expression of the parental phenotype, then we have to assume that the two genes present on the chromosome are completely linked. And if we see that four gametes are being formed, but the amount of non-recombinant gametes or the non-crossover products is greater than 50% as compared to the crossover products, then we have to come to a conclusion that incomplete linkage is occurring in between the two genes concerned. Now let's move on to another concept, that is the concept of a genetic map. But whenever we write a genetic map, we need to understand how the two genes present and how, the arrangement of the two genes. For example, let me show you an example. See, in this arrangement, the two wild type alleles are on one homologue. Let us assume this is another chromosome. And the two recessive mutant alleles are on the other homologue. This kind of arrangement is called coupling or cis configuration. Whenever there is a crossing over phenomena occurring between this kind of arrangement, what are the products we will get? We will get a product of WS, W plus M and WM plus as a result of crossing over. So if the two wild type alleles are on one homologue, then we can say that the arrangement is in coupling. In contrast, when we see arrangement like this, where each homologue carries wild type allele of one gene, so wild type allele of the one gene is present in the two different chromosomes, and the mutant allele of the other gene, then this arrangement is called repulsion. So remember, with respect to the wild type present in the same chromosome, it is coupling. The wild type present in two different chromosomes, it is repulsion or transconfiguration. This is cis configuration. This is transconfiguration. When a crossing over occurs in between these two, what we get the two wild type alleles on one chromosome. As a result of crossing over, they become in coupling, and the two recessive mutants on the other chromosome. So this is when we talk about genes in coupling or genes in repulsion, you have to understand that the two wild type alleles are on the same chromosome and the two recessive alleles are on the other chromosome. For example, as I said, if you remember, the word is written genes in coupling. So genes in coupling here means that the dominant alleles are on one chromosome. That is why this particular word was written here, genes in coupling. So that is one concept that we developed from this particular slide. And before further moving into the concept of linkage, incomplete linkage, so on, we need to come to another important discovery that happened during the time of 1902-1903. That was the chromosomal theory of inheritance. Now, the chromosomal theory of inheritance was put forth by Walter Sutton and Theodore Boveri. Now, so this is Walter Sutton and Theodore Boveri. Thomas Hunt Morgan is famous for his linkage experiments on Drosophila. So he contributed a lot into this concept. So now what does this chromosome theory states? Now, if we look into the chromosomal theory of inheritance, there are some main points that needs to be talked about. The first point is that during the process of cell division, meiosis, the pair of homologous chromosomes move as discrete structures. So when I started my class today, showing you the parallelism between behavior of chromosomes in meiosis and Mendelism, that was something we observed there, that the pair of homologous chromosomes move as discrete structures. The second point is there's a random distribution of chromosomes into the pre-gametes from each homozygous pair. So if you remember that particular diagram, so we saw that two possible combinations can be achieved, and the chromosomes were then randomly distributed into the pre-gametes, each gamete containing the gene pair. Remember, there should be an A gene and a B gene, if you remember. Two A genes didn't go to one gamete. So there was an A gene and a B gene. Finally, this is one thing very important that was stated at that time. Remember, I'm talking about 1902, 1903. Even though the male and the female gametes differ in size and morphology, they have the same number of chromosomes submitting equal genetic contributions from each parent. So this was, in a nutshell, the chromosome theory of inheritance proposed by Walter Sutton and Theodore Broveri. And now the observations that support the chromosome theory of inheritance. So let us look into the picture. So whenever we think of a pair of alleles, this is a pair of allele. One allele is coming from the mother and the other allele is coming from the father. When we think of pair of homologous chromosomes, see, we are just comparing Mendelism with the behavior of chromosomes. You see that A allele is present in the chromosome coming from the mother, and the small a allele is present in the chromosome coming from the father. As I said, when Mendel did his experiments, the chromosome theory of inheritance had not come up. As you can understand, he did his work around 1864 to around 1884. So he was not aware of any of these concepts. So when we think of Mendelism, we think at this level. Mendel thought at this level. But when we are at this present era, think of the movement of alleles, we think it at this level because the genes are present on the chromosome. So this is a comparative picture showing you what Mendel thought and what should be the actual scenario. Now, you remember Mendelism. So as Mendel thought, capital A, small a segregated into two different gametes. Now, when we think in terms of chromosomes, cell, we know in S-phase DNA replication, meiosis 1, meiosis 2, you can see the formation of gametes. Capital A gamete, small a gamete. So as you can see from the picture, this process mirrors the segregation of alleles into gametes in Mendel's law of segregation. Finally, this we know, the members of different chromosome pairs are sorted into gametes independently of one another in meiosis, just like the alleles of different genes in Mendel's law of independent assortment. Now we are going to bring in another gene pair to understand how Mendel imagined his dihybrid crosses. So if you look into this case, so this is the dihybrid cross, the dihybrid situation that Mendel imagined. So if you remember, the Mendel's dihybrid cross, these were the 4 categories of gametes that were obtained. So we are having a capital A, capital B, capital A, small b, small a, capital B, small a, small b. And now let us look into the 4 cases. So this is the picture that I started with today's class. So you are having 2 gene pair. Now 2 gene pair meiosis. So the arrangement may be that the genes may be in coupling. So both the wild type allele on one side. So genes in coupling are present on same chromosome. This is not a situation of coupling, but both the wild type alleles are present on one side and both the recessive alleles are present on the other side. So whenever there is this pull, we are having a situation where both the wild types for the 2 genes or the dominant alleles move on to the same gamete, same side, not the gamete, same side, and the 2 recessive genes move to the other side. And from this set, we get 2 categories of gamete, capital A, capital B. And from this set, we get small a, small b. So these are the two conditions, or it might be that during the realignment of the chromosomes on the equatorial on the metaphase plate, what we see is that capital A, small b moving on one side and small a, capital B moving on the other side. Accordingly, meiosis 1 followed by meiosis 2. So we have this combination of gamete, capital A, small b and small a, capital B. So these were the 4 categories of gametes that we observe in meiosis. And if you compare the data with that of Mendel's dihybrid gamete formation, they are the same. To move into much details into the independent assortment concept, as I said, this is 2 different chromosomes, 2 genes on 2 different homologous pair being independently assorted. We have discussed this. And as I'm saying once, we remember that this is a structure of independent assortment being shown in 2 pairs of chromosome, each containing 1 heterozygous gene pair. Since the 2 genes in concern are on 2 different chromosomes, so the concept of linkage does not arise. No linkage is exhibited. But when the same 2 chromosomes are observed in a large number of meiotic events, they are seen to form equally 4 genetically different gametes in equal proportions. So if you can see, we have capital A, capital B, small a, capital B, capital A, small b, and small a, small b. So these were the 4 gametes that were symbolized by Mendel when he did his dihybrid ratios. If we move on to the concept of complete linkage, the moment we are talking about complete linkage, we have to assume the 2 genes in concern are present on a single pair of chromosome. So if such a situation arises, so you can see capital A, capital B, or the A and B gene pair is present on the same chromosome. And since the genes are linked, no crossing over is occurring between the 2, and we are getting 2 kinds of products only, capital A, capital B, and small a, small b. The genes here present are in coupling. The dominant alleles on one chromosome and the recessive alleles on the other chromosome. So as you can see that no crossing over is occurring, each gamete receives the alleles present on one homologue of the other. In case of complete linkage, this is very important. Only parental or non-crossover gametes are produced. This is something which I've been repeating quite for some time during this class. So remember this, for complete linkage, we always get 2 categories of gametes and only the parentals or the non-crossover gametes are obtained. And finally comes the concept of incomplete linkage. In incomplete linkage, as there is a crossing over event, you can see that the 2 gene pair in concern are capital A, capital B, and there's a crossing over event occurring between the 2 non-sister chromatids in the homologous chromosomes, 2 homologous chromosomes. And whenever there is this phenomenon of crossing over, we are getting a capital A, capital B, this is the parental setup, and we are getting a small a, capital B, this is a crossover product. So this is a non-crossover gamete, crossover gamete. And again, we are getting another non-crossover gamete, that is now crossover gamete is capital A, small b, and the non-crossover gamete is small a, small b. So these 2 gametes are the non-crossover gametes, and we are getting 2 crossover products. Now the difference between independent assortment and incomplete linkage is that had this been a case of independent assortment, all the gametes would have been present in equal amount. So the ratio between the 4 categories of gametes would have been 1:1:1:1. But since this is a phenomenon of incomplete linkage as exhibited on the heading, so we'll be getting 4 categories of gametes, but the non-crossover gamete amount will be much more. So they will be more than 50% as compared to the crossover gametes. So in this case also we get 4 gametes, and just to recapitulate, you people are all aware that crossover involves only 2 non-sister chromatids of the 4 chromatids present in the tetrad. So it is during this tetrad formation that crossover is taking place. So this is a slide showing you a comparative analysis of the 3 pictures. In the case of independent assortment, the 2 gene pairs are on different chromosome. In case of linkage, where I showed you exhibited a case of complete linkage and incomplete linkage, the 2 genes concerned are present in coupling on the same chromosome. In case of both independent assortment and incomplete linkage, we get 4 categories of gametes. The difference is in the ratio of the 4 categories of gametes. In independent assortment, the ratio is always 1:1:1:1. In case of linkage, the non-crossover products is always greater than the crossover products. That's the difference. And finally, this is another beautiful summation from Klug and Cummings. Sorry, let's move like this one first. Now, if you see that look at this, the 2 linked genes are linked. And even though there is a crossover phenomena occurring, it does not alter the linkage arrangement between the 2 genes in concern. You see that there is a crossing over occurring, but we are concerned with the status quo of the A and the B gene. And even though there is a crossover phenomena occurring, we are seeing that with respect to A and B, there has been no crossover event. So with respect to A and B, we are seeing that the parental combination is achieved, even though you can see a crossover has occurred in between the 2 chromosomes. Again, look at the situation B situation. Here, the 2 genes in concern are situated quite some distance apart. As a result of which, whenever there is this crossover event, we are seeing the reflection of the crossing over by the expression of the A and B on the gametes. So here in this case, since A and B is situated at a distance apart and a crossing over has occurred, so it's obvious that this crossing over has affected the A and B genes, and this crossing over can be detected. So this is one vital message you should all perceive from this picture, is that when the distance between 2 genes is very small, then crossing over does not happen to occur between the 2 genes in concern. You see here. But if there is some sizable amount of distance between the 2 genes in concern, then evidently we see that there is a phenomenon of crossing over takes place. In case A also, we are seeing a phenomenon of crossing over, but since we are considering this phenomenon of crossing over in context to the A and the B gene, hence in case A, this crossing over is getting undetected. But in the B situation, you can see that the crossing over can be detected because the position of the A and the B gene has changed. So whenever there is a detectable amount of crossing over occurring, again, once more, we get 4 categories of gametes, 2 non-crossover products and 2 crossover gametes. So the consequence of single exchange between 2 non-sister chromatid occurring in the tetrad stage is always the presence of 4 categories of gametes, 2 non-crossover and 2 crossover gametes. So this should be kept in mind. When the loci of the 2 linked genes are far apart, the genes are said to be linked, but they're far apart, the number of recombination gametes approaches but does not exceed 50%. Now, this is something that should be understood. For example, A and B, the distance is far apart. The more they move apart from each other, they tend to be assorted independently. So in this case, the amount of crossover product equals to the amount of non-crossover products. So we'll be having 50% of crossover products and 50% of non-crossover products. If we have the crossover products less than 50%, we have to assume that there is a situation of incomplete linkage. But imagine that there is a situation of linkage between A and B, and we see that the crossover product is 50%, non-crossover product is 50%. Then we have to think that complete linkage may be there or might not be there, but the genes have been assorted independently. So that is what it is saying. The loci, when the two loci of two linked genes are apart, the number of recombination gamete approaches are about 50%. So this is one take-home message that should be kept in mind, because in this chapter at the end, we will be having problems to do. The second important point, that if 50% recombinants occur, if you have a 50% recombination, we don't know the status quo of the genes, whether they're linked or not, but we are seeing the gamete ratio as 1:1:1:1. We have to assume that the genes have been assorted independently. Now, we do not know if we have got a scenario like this. The gametes are produced in the ratio 1:1:1:1. Then, in this case, the transmission of the two linked genes is indistinguishable from the two unlinked genes, independently assorting genes. So, if the genes are linked and yet they are giving a gamete ratio of 1, we are getting 4 categories of gamete, remember. So, if the gamete ratio in this case is 1:1:1:1, we will not be able to distinguish the fact that whether the genes are linked or whether the genes are unlinked. So this is what the concept states here. So from today's class, there's one more experiment I want to show. So we understood the phenomena of crossover products, phenomena of non-crossover products. We understood the recombination ratio. If we have a non-crossover is to crossover, crossover means recombinants. So if we have a parents is to recombinant ratio 50% is to 50%, then we have to assume that the genes will not be able to clarify whether the genes are linked or independently assorted, but the genes are following the phenomena of independent assortment. Now let us look into one example. Now this example I'll be giving you is of Drosophila. Look at the two genes in concern. So we have long wings, gray bodies, vestigial. VG is the vestigial gene and B is the body color gene. Okay. So when we have this mutant for the vestigial gene, you can see the wing length has decreased and the body color, usually they have a gray body, but the body color becomes black. So this is a pure wild type fly crossed with a pure mutant fly. And we get an F1 category. We all know what we'll be getting in F1. So we get in F1, VG plus B plus VGB. So you can see we get in F1 this situation. So this is a heterozygote. Now the question is that whether VG and B are linked or not. So if they are not linked, then what we will get? We will get the two parental types and two recombinant types. So let's see. Let's look into the cross. So these are the parental types. VG plus the genes are present in coupling. So this is one parent, this is the other parent. So this is this parent and this is the recessive parent. Okay. And we will be getting two recombinant types. So this is the parents. You can see the similarity with the parents. And now we get the two recombinant types. The genes have been, there's a crossing over phenomena occurring. So we have VG B plus and VG plus B. Crossing over has occurred. Now you see the amount. So when these flies were crossed and were calculated, 180 recombinants were observed and 820 parentals were observed. What concept did we develop till now? Had there been 500 parentals and 500 recombinants, we would have said that VG and B are independently assorted. Had there been only the parentals, we could have said that VG and B are completely linked. But we have got all the 4 genotypes. And the ratio is not 50 to 50. As you can see, the amount of the parental products is much, much more than the amount of the recombinants. So it is evident that even the crossing over is occurring between VG and B, but the genes are incompletely linked. Because the genes are somewhat linked, so the tendency of formation of recombination is very low. And from this thing, we can calculate the frequency of recombination. So the frequency of recombination in this case will be, there are 1,000 flies and the number of recombinants we observed is 180. So the frequency of recombination will be 0.18. So this is how we calculate recombination frequency from crosses. And this cross is a beautiful example of incomplete linkage. Vestigial means black body flies. This cross is particularly a beautiful example of incomplete linkage. So today I'll stop my class here.